Hello and welcome to episode number 88 of what is now the NerdProQuo podcast. I know a couple of you reached out to me and said you had trouble either downloading a MP3 or a track from the website, and or it didn't update in iTunes. I have reached out to iTunes and hopefully that'll be resolved soon. In the meantime, the download link for the episodes has been fixed, so if it's not automatically updated in iTunes for all your subscribers, and by the way, all you subscribers, thank you for subscribing. And if you are hearing this and you're not subscribing, please subscribe to this podcast because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/NerdProQuo, or just look up NerdProQuo on YouTube. There's going to be a bunch of stuff that is going to be going into production for April. Episodes, a couple sketches, and possibly a crafting show that is in pre-production right now. So go check that out. In the meantime, we got those quick plugs. You got every Friday, you got the Living Room Comedy Show, which I will probably be at, not performing at, but I will be at this Friday. That is at the park, at the, not the Parkside. That is a different place in the city. That is at the Postmark Cafe, which is a little coffee shop on 6th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue in Parksville, Brooklyn. You also have the Union Square Slam. I believe the features have kind of switched around recently, and I don't have it on me. But is that the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which I am probably getting that wrong, but it's in the LGBT Center, which is also a bookstore. Starts at 7. It's a $5 cover, all ages. It's a workshop at 6 p.m. Also, what is it? Oh, it's 208 West 13th Street, room 10. I believe it's room 10. But just if you go to 208 West 13th Street and you just go up the stairs, or you ask where the Union Square Slam is, they will direct you to that. Also, this coming week is WOWPS. It's the Women of the World Poetry Slam. So there's a lot of, and it is in Brooklyn this year. So it is local. So you should go check a bunch of those events out. The competitions, there's going to be side events. It's a really cool thing that is happening this week, and it's happening all this week. So you should go check that out if you can. The prices and the covers things are different. I believe the finals are already sold out, so you probably can't get tickets to go to the finals. But a lot of the side events and the preliminaries are going to be all over Brooklyn, I think centered around Pratt here in Brooklyn, so go check that out. What else, aside from the housekeeping stuff about subscriptions? Yeah, I said hit subscribe, but you might not be able to yet. In the meantime, you can definitely go straight to NerdProQuo NerdProQuo.com/podcast and just download the podcast there. I think I'm also, for the time being, probably going to be putting up these most recent episodes up in the SoundCloud app, so I will post that also on the website. So just go to nerdproquo.com/podcast. You should be able to click on, if not for this episode, in the future, click on a SoundCloud link and go straight to there. What else do I need to tell you? Oh, yeah, this episode is the second half of the supermassive OG Hostful that was released 2 weeks ago. And it mostly covers video games, a lot about NetRunner. So that is this episode. Next week's going to be solo episode, or possibly a duo with Eve and me, because there's a bunch of stuff that TV shows and stuff that have kind of piled up, and nerdy things and kind of non-nerdy things that I wanted to talk about. So next week is going to be a solo episode. A week after that, it's probably going to be a guest or a group thing. There's a couple things in the pipeline, but I haven't confirmed any of them. But in the meantime, enjoy this episode. It is the Super OG Hostful Part 2 video games. Yep.
I gotta go pee. I'm gonna.
So we ranted about movies for a while. And,
Yeah.
To talk about something else, it's a little late to the party, but Rise of the Tomb Raider. Yeah, Jamie can leave because he doesn't play video games. Rise of the Tomb Raider, just as good as the last Tomb Raider.
On PC,
sooner than I thought it was going to be. So happy about that.
There was that delayed release thing was on Xbox One first, so I don't own an Xbox One, and I don't feel like paying $400 for the privilege of playing Halo. So yeah, but it's good. It's really good. The action is great. The only thing that I'm noticing, I played the PC version. The original Tomb Raider I played on Xbox. And then I'm playing Rise of the Tomb Raider on PC. That game on dual analogs is way harder than it is on mouse and keyboard. It is so, it's really interesting because the things that made for compelling, intense gameplay on analog sticks does not make for compelling, intense gameplay
on KBAM.
Things that move towards you slowly and pressure you are not interesting.
Even a tiny bit of a challenge.
Especially when they only throw one of them at you at a time. If they threw 3 of them at a time, it would be a really serious and significant challenge.
When the Resident Evil 4 PC port came out, the recent one, the one that didn't suck, just a couple of years ago. I think it was 1 or 2 years ago. And I reviewed it. It was really interesting because it felt like they turned the difficulty down, but it was just because you could K-BAM, and it turns out that the game is easy as shit, and you can just point at a thing.
Headshot K-BAM is really... I'm not great at headshots in fast-moving games. I can't land headshots in TF2, I can't. I would have a bit of a problem with them in Call of Duty.
You probably would have a bit of a problem.
I probably would want to teabag your mom. But landing them in Tomb Raider, when people there's actually a part, there's an AI bit where once there are 3 guys on screen, one guy pulls a pistol and charges you. Mm-hmm. He just does that. And I'm like, seriously? I actually watched him run towards me in complete bafflement at one point. Boom! And he just died. I was like, I guess, cool, alright, I suppose. And the fact that I can run up to people, drill them, and run away again before anybody can really draw a significant beat on me. And I'm not playing it on normal, I'm playing it on hard mode. And I feel like I should be playing it on super hard mode.
I gotta tell you, I've graduated to serious pro gamer asshole at this point because I can't remember the last game that I played on a normal or easy mode.
Yeah.
Just because I want to feel something. Just because normally I
just need to feel something.
Yeah.
So I play Mass Effect 3 on Insane. It's the engineer class.
But no, I Rise of the Tomb Raider is actually on my radar. I haven't played it yet. But I've heard really good things.
It's worth it. It's totally worth playing.
I hear that the plot didn't spiral off into dumb, which is the most important.
Yeah, the plot, it's not super memorable, but it's interesting. The 2 villains are a brother and a sister, which I think is an interesting change. It seems like it's leaning towards oh god, what is Lara Croft becoming? She kills so many people. What is all this murder turning you into?
What is all this murder?
Yeah. One of the problems is that the mechanics don't reflect that. This was a problem in the original Tomb Raider as well, where the mechanics were it's oh my god, I'm having to kill these people, my friends are dying, everything is terrible, I don't know what my life is anymore. Do a shotgun close range finisher for extra XP. I'm like, really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think this is doing what you want it to do.
Actually, I gotta say, one of the things that really disappoints me, and this is partially because I was spoiled by Undertale, but partially just because I'm reading deeper into games now, I'm examining mechanics as I play games more. And so few games get it. Yeah. Fallout 4. That was crazy Game of the Year nominee. Everybody wanted to do that, to play this game. I got so bored of it.
It's not a bad game, but I have way more freedom in how I construct my settlements than I do in how I execute my missions.
Yep. I mean, bad game is kind of a subjective thing. It's not broken and it's not unplayable.
It doesn't feel like Fallout. There were 4 Fallouts. There were 4 Fallouts before this. There was 1, 2, 3, and New Vegas. And it doesn't feel like any of those games. New Vegas had
Most people actually say that it just feels like Fallout 3, but with better graphics and less mission.
Yeah. I mean, the whole like Minuteman thing. When you decide you're going to be a Minuteman, I'm going to unite the Wasteland. I'm going to put my body in the line of fire to make the Wasteland a better place. Why? Because I think it's the right thing to do. There's really no other in-game reason to do it. Other than I like to set up trade routes and whatever. Like, you could be like, no, I'm the king of the fucking Wasteland. And this is my kingdom, and I'm building it. You could, but neither of those things happen. Like, the saving people and rescuing these settlements, completely fucking bland, totally fucking bland. Like, there's not even an option to say, fuck you, I'm the king of the Wasteland. You know, fuck the Brotherhood of Steel, fuck the Railroad, and fuck the Institute. I'm the king of the Wasteland. Me, this guy. I came out of a fucking cryo chamber and I swept through the Wasteland like a force of nature, and I own it now. Like, that's not even an option. In other previous Fallouts, that was an option. I'm a badass. What do I do? Badass shit. What do I do? I run this motherfucker.
What do I do? Whenever someone thanks me, I shoot them in the face.
Which is how Angelo...
I played Fallout 3 like that. It was great.
But there's so little flavor to anything. There's even like, in comparison, right? Even, I think it was in New Vegas, there's this femme fatale girl that you meet, and she's a prostitute. She doesn't really want to be a prostitute. She's in love with this gangster, and she needs to get away. And you can save her, you can sell her out. There's a lot of different ways you can resolve the mission. And if you save her, you feel like, yeah, I did a good thing today. You know, like, you know, maybe I'm not a good person. Maybe I do some bad shit, but like, I did a good thing today. And this woman is with somebody who really loves her, and they're gonna get out of this fucked up life. He's not gonna be a gangster. She's not gonna be a prostitute. And they're gonna be able to be the people who they want to be. You know, there's another character like that. There's like this songstress femme fatale, and you can talk to her and sleep with her. Yeah, that's about it. Like, there's no mission there as far as I can tell. I cheated on my in-game girlfriend, Piper Wright, who's a great character. Piper Wright, I cheated on her just to see what would happen. Nobody cares.
Nothing
happens.
Yeah, see, I hate when that happens.
Like, when you cheat on somebody, I regret this like it's a thing I actually fucking did. When I cheated on Alistair with Liliana and then broke Liliana's heart, I felt like an asshole. I still feel like an asshole. This happened like 5 years ago. In not real life. I still care about it. And I don't feel anything when I play Fallout 4. Like, I started taking care of the settlements because there wasn't a lot else to do. And so now and then Rise of the Tomb Raider came out, and then you play through that amazingly cinematic opening sequence on top of this snowy mountain, and then you play through this awesomely cinematic sequence in Syria, and then it gets away from the cinematic stuff and you have more control, and you're interacting with the mechanics, and like, here's how you can hunt, and like, here's how your weapons work, and here's how you slowly upgrade all the shit you own, and like, you can do optional missions, and maybe you want a lockpick, so you do the optional mission for the lockpick, and then you meet the people that, and then it stops being about cinematic set pieces and it starts being about like, here's how you meaningfully interact with the world vis-a-vis our mechanics. None of that in Fallout 4. Like, such a cool game, such an interesting game, like in terms of like, the gameplay is improved, and like so many other things have gotten better, and just like the plot just fell by the wayside completely. Obsidian really needs to like just punch out whoever the head of Bethesda is and like just take that property back and write it, because they wrote New Vegas,
right? And
New Vegas was perhaps the most compelling Fallout of the entire series. The factional systems, the way that you can't be friends with everybody. If you want to be really good friends with one person, you're going to have to start pissing other factions off. You just have to do that.
There are a lot of people,
and it's really interesting. There's 3 different paths. You can be one of the bad guys.
There's a lot of people who say that they like Fallout 3 more than New Vegas, but even the people who like Fallout 3 are kind of lukewarm on Fallout 4.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always have this problem, and I talk about this all the time, but a game being open is not the same as a game having meaningful choice.
Yeah.
And in our current industry, we conflate the two a lot,
which is a terrible mistake.
Yeah, it's bad, because like, I accept that open world gaming isn't my flavor, but can be good for a lot of people.
And we had that argument. We had that argument about open world games and how much I liked them. And I think that was actually right after I played Fallout New Vegas. I'm like, no, it can be amazing. It can be an incredible experience. It can be this living world.
And then Fallout 4.
And then Fallout 4 happened.
Yeah,
and
that's
I was like, all right, well, Angelo was right. I read about everything about NetRunner. And he's right about the games industry. That's just how it is. And we had things to say all
we're going to talk about that. But yeah, before we get into NetRunner Age, which we're totally going to do, and we'll explain why I just started playing Hearthstone.
Yeah.
But just
I need another beer for this.
there are a lot of games out there that are very open. Like, honestly, The Witcher 3 wasn't that bad of a game, but it still had a lot of this thing. The question is, when you are playing your story, examine where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. If after all the quote-unquote open world choice, you have been to the same place, are at the same place, and are going to the same place, then the choice is an illusion. What you're doing is a side quest. And that's it.
And I don't mind side quests.
I don't mind
side quests. Some of the best quests in Fallout New Vegas. The one I did where I rescued the prostitute and reunited her with her gangster boyfriend was, while a problematic mission for a variety of reasons, was a side quest. But I remember it.
But that changes who you are fundamentally as a character. It's arguable that none of the quests in Fallout 4 change who you are as a character or what your important... I'm getting... anyway...
I'll just interrupt you with random reading tweets.
It's arguable...
I made a real point of not shouting out about my victories or losses while playing Hearthstone.
Yeah, and Jamie's just an asshole.
Fuckers are talking about anime. And,
but it's arguable that nothing in Fallout 4 changes who you are as a character or changes your role in the story. Yeah. Even though it changes how a couple people will interact with you, it's all just it's all surface level. Like, nothing actually changes.
I want to wipe out, everyone in Diamond City just to see if anyone reacts to me differently.
And they don't. That's the thing. You could be a mass murderer that shoots everyone you see and go to the next city and we haven't seen you around here. And this is exactly what I said in our argument. Yes, you fucking have! I'm that murderer that's been going around killing everyone. Yeah. Why do you just treat me like this stranger?
And that's one of the things I loved about New Vegas is that your reputation followed you. Mm-hmm. If you decided to sweep through the wasteland like a force of nature and kill everyone, everybody knew it, and nobody liked you. And that was fine. That was great. You could raid people, and that mattered. You got cool shit if you raided people, but now you're a raider and no one likes you. And now I can just go. There's just you know what I feel like? I feel like I'm playing a bad version of Call of Duty because all the missions are. I'm just going to instances, and they're just locations throughout the map.
Yeah, exactly.
Raiders. I kill everyone in the place, I take the thing, and I walk out. Even the maps themselves are linear, and I don't get a sense of exploration. I'm just running through an instance.
What's even... PBS Idea Channel actually did a good episode on this, which was basically their Why Undertale's Amazing and Fallout 4 Sucks episode. But... But they said, think about how in games like Fallout 4, your only meaningful way of interacting with the environment is killing another dude.
Yeah.
There is no other meaningful way to interact with the environment.
I haven't talked my way through one single fucking problem. Not one. That was I went into that game, I'm like, all right, this is how you're going to structure, the attribute system was set up a little differently. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, if you're only getting me 5 ability points or something, or if you're going to give me 25 ability points from jump and start all my attributes at 1, I'm starting the game with a fucking 9 charisma, 8 charisma. I am going to talk the shit through this game. Because that's what I did in every other Fallout game. I made sure that my charisma and my agility and my perception were jacked. So I talked my way through every problem. Any problem I couldn't talk my way through, I shot through. Right. And that, for me, became a very satisfying way of going through these games. I do that over and over again, but, the story is great because the way I talk through them is different. I talked through the biggest badass in the game in Fallout New Vegas. Leggett Lanius is like this boogeyman that they're talking about through the whole game. Oh, Leggett Lanius is coming. Leggett Lanius is coming. When Leggett Lanius gets here, holy shit, it's going to be bad. And then you fight Leggett Lanius on the dam, or you don't if you decided to max out your speech skills and your charisma and your intelligence. You just talk past him, and it's awesome. You actually basically have a debate about military tactics with him. And you can be like, no, I'm not going to get in the fight. And eventually I was like, let's see what happens when I get in the fight. He kicks my ass. Like, he's a ridiculous badass, and he murders the shit out of me, which is fine. And me having the ability to talk my way through the problems of Fallout New Vegas does not in any way take away from somebody's ability to shoot their way through the game. You want to shoot your way through that game? It is absolutely an option.
Yeah.
It's also very American.
It is very American, and that's the game you want to play? Woohoo! And you can play it, but there's now... I can shoot my way through Fallout 4. Mm-hmm. That's all I can do.
That's it.
Shoot my way through the game. Awesome. That's fantastic. Which is just a shame, because the advancement systems, everything regarding advancement, is so much better, I feel like, in this one. The fact that you level quicker, the fact that you get perks instead of skills, like, I thought all of that was just great. I thought so much of that was refined in such a great and meaningful way. And in Fallout 4, they were like, okay, let's refine all the mechanics and fuck everything else.
And like, it's also kind of disappointing even when games like, okay, now you have just shoot and talk. But shoot and talk is better than just shoot, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there are games, modern day games, that have done shoot and talk and stealth and manipulate and, you know, like... lots of different things.
Deus Ex Human Revolution. Mm-hmm. Did they fuck up the whole boss fight thing? Yes, but they actually released a director's cut apparently and fixed that.
Yep.
Like, but there's so many ways to resolve all the different problems you're there. Pick the lock. Mm-hmm. Sneak by in your stealth suit. Murder those guys. Knock those guys out. Like, so much. So much. And I have nothing but high hopes for the next one.
Yeah.
And it's just so disappointing that game didn't kind of follow through. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Justin, you're a hypocrite. You're just talking about how great Rise of the Tomb Raider was, and that game is completely linear. Yeah, it is. But it never tried to pretend it was anything but that. Never before has the Lara Croft games or the Tomb Raider games, none of them have ever been like, oh, here's a game about choice and consequences.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the thing. Like, it's not like every game, first of all, has to be made with choice and consequences. But once again, PBS Idea Channel guys, words, not me. In games like Tomb Raider, you are making meaningful choice about how you interact with the environment. This was the first Tomb Raider. Because it's about the emotional impact on Lara Croft.
Yeah.
So the ways that you are dealing with conflict and the positions you are put in are in service to the story. But in Fallout 4, the fact that you have to shoot some dudes is totally apropos of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't directly link with the story, other than there are some guys and there need to not be those guys. And so it's not like you're grappling with what it means to take a life in the post-apocalypse. It's not like you're understanding what new weapons tech is. It's not like any of this adds to the story. It's just that they couldn't think of another way to interact with the world around you, so it's use gun on man.
Yeah. And look, I'm a big fan of Use Gun on Man, but this is also the thing: are the mechanics of Fallout deeply refined? Yes, but like the fun of Use Gun on Man in Fallout 4 is much lower than pretty much any other shooter with the option to use gun on man. Like, using gun on man is far better in Left 4 Dead 2, which came out almost 10 years ago now, than it is in Fallout. And given that, like, Fallout 4 made a point of trying to make zombies a hell of a lot scarier, Left 4 Dead 2 is still better, and it's 10 years old. Like, it's just really astonishing just how much...
Horrible joke ever.
What?
Why don't you ever just tell the joke?
Yeah,
just tell the jokes.
Dude.
Because it's horrible.
If you're a horrible person, then I'll just check you on it.
We'll move to another fucking topic then. NetRunner.
Yeah, NetRunner. Okay, Damon Stone. You think you fucking know things?
Tell people who Damon Stone is and explain
Damon
the
Stone
situation.
is the new designer who's in charge of NetRunner. He's picking up where Lucas Litzinger left off as head designer.
Totally pieced out, by the way.
Yeah, he senioritis the fuck out of there.
he was like, problems with the game? Who cares? I'm done. So,
and I mean, look, I get it. Damon, Lucas, it's a hard fucking job. It's a thankless fucking job. And assholes like me and Angelo are going to yell at you about the job that you're doing on podcasts. But seriously, guys, the most wanted list.
Explain what the most wanted list is.
God, do I have to explain?
Yes, you do.
God. See, this is the thing that's interesting about... I'm going to get a little meta here for a second. The interesting thing about these segments is the only people who would care about the most wanted list already know what the most wanted list is. And if you don't know about the most wanted list, you're not going to care about the segment.
Well, there are a couple of people who get into games and understand sort of in a more general sense. You know,
okay.
For both by like rundowns. I mean, I know me, like I might not be a particular huge part of like say the Lord of the Rings or the Game of Thrones card game metagame.
Yeah.
But if someone posts an article about problems in the game, I like meta discussion in general and mechanics discussion in general.
Okay, fair enough.
So you know,
And being that there's maybe one podcast every couple of months in which games are discussed.
yeah,
Go ahead.
for our gamer rights. Yeah.
The NetRunner is an asymmetrical card game where you play the runner and the corporation, and the runner sets up the corporation sets up servers, and the runner tries to break in and steal stuff or destroy stuff inside of them. That's the really basic explanation of what.
Yeah,
this
we've
game
talked about it here before, but
is. I've spent almost $500 on this game.
yeah.
Which is, God, you can't see me right now, but I'm rubbing my eyes as we're taking off my glasses, thinking about how much money I spent on this game.
I've spent too much on Hearthstone, and it's like a tenth of what you spent.
Stop
Yeah.
talking. So the thing is about that is the game was getting really stale. The meta had a lot of problems. We were seeing a lot of the same decks over and over and over again.
Yeah, there was this one deck archetype, just to give it a rundown. We call it Fastro. Basically what it was, just to not get into the nitty-gritty, is it uses a couple cards. One of them is called AstroScript Pilot Protocol, which we'll talk about later, which allows you to end the game essentially in 3 turns. It end the game without any meaningful player interaction.
Yeah.
You win the game when you're the corp by scoring agendas, and it allows you to score these agendas with literally nothing that the runner can do to prevent you from doing so.
Yeah, or extremely minimal things that they can do, and the effectiveness of it's not the runner says, okay, well I have my trap card and you can't do it. They can.
You've forgotten about my trap card.
Exactly. You can try and attempt things that might stop them, but probably won't. Mm-hmm. It's really hard strategy to counter, and this isn't just me bitching and moaning. I could just as easily make the same deck myself. I have all the same cards.
There have been statistical studies. We could show you the numbers.
Yeah, I'll forward you the shit if you have any fucking attitude to say fucking NetRunner.
The doobly-doo.
And so everyone was waiting for somebody to do something about this problem. And so Damon Stone, as his kind of first action as NetRunner head developer, introduced the most wanted list, where he took certain cards and he made them harder to use both in and out of faction due to something called factional influence. There are multiple factions in NetRunner, 4 different corporate factions, 3 different runner factions, and now certain cards across the factions are harder to use because they take up more of your influence. To give you an idea of the way that works, influence is measured from 0 to 5 per card. Per copy of the card. So the most number of copies of one card you can have in your deck is 3. So for some of the most powerful cards in the game, they have a 5 influence, so it would be 15. Most runners and corporations only have 15 influence. Some even have less than 15 influence. So now the most wanted list made it such that certain cards, even in faction, cost you a point of influence. And then outside of faction, they cost you the normal influence cost plus 1. So what this did was destroy several deck archetypes that were just beginning to become relevant in the meta, and did absolutely nothing to handle the problem with Fastro, the NBN Near Earth Hub AstroScript pilot protocol, and even took the decks and the people who loved playing those decks, made it so hard to run those decks that now you can't reach outside of your faction for cards in other factions almost at all if you want to run that archetype effectively. So the decks actually have become far, far less interesting.
I believe that
PPVP Kate has been destroyed as an archetype.
Foss Quetzal destroyed as an archetype.
Faust Quetzal.
Valencia Mill destroyed as an archetype.
Yep.
Anything criminal destroyed as an archetype. We saw the number, and so most of this is just going to be jargon to you. But to talk numbers, it was 36-ish% NBN win rate pre-MWL, and now it's 70-something.
Win rate or just participation in tournament?
Well, top 30%. Like, you could hit top 16.
God,
yeah,
really?
so win rate.
So
like,
70. So so the top 16 of your tournament
Yeah.
is likely to be 70% NBN. So what is that?
70-something% NBN. It's
So
crazy.
that's something like 12
yeah.
of the top 16.
Of the top 16
corporate decks.
Corp decks are going to be NBN.
So I didn't even look. I'm fucking angry. I'm angry. I'm angry at you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm angry at you. Please fix this. I understand that your job is hard. I have sympathy for that. I have a hard job too. But, nerds aren't screaming at me at my job, just my boss. Please fix this. This I understand was an experiment. It didn't work out. Please do something else. Try something else.
I think Anarch, which was, once again, the most common runner archetype, also went up to like 50 some odd,
Yeah.
Like, what it did was it skewed... the thought was that this was going to make people play other factions more, but since these cards now cost influence inside their own faction, it actually just means that you need to stick to that faction more because you can't splash them otherwise.
Yeah. And on top of that, the Most Wanted list managed to destroy one of the prominent archetypes outside of the Anarch faction. PPVP Kate, prepaid voice pad Kate, destroyed that archetype. Destroyed it. You can't. It's really hard to run now. It's really hard to make a good deck with it. Nobody's playing it anymore. And that doesn't necessarily mean the archetype's not good, but it's certainly a lot less powerful than it used to.
It wasn't ruining the meta. Is
No,
the thing.
it wasn't. It wasn't a deck that was impossible to compete against, or at least I didn't think it was. It's just really disappointing that this happened. I understand, with iterative design, you can't necessarily just immediately turn it off just because the fans don't like it, but this needs a revision. Really, the Most Wanted list would have actually pissed me off a lot less if it had one minor inclusion, which was making AstroScript Pilot Protocol into a one-off card. You can only have one in your deck. Period. You can't build a strategy around it. That would have really gone a long way to fixing what I perceive as a major problem in the game.
To speak for numbers for the people who aren't keeping up with the jargon, this isn't just us bitching. Tournament attendance is down. Play rate is down. I believe that sales for the Mumbai cycle, the first one for the Mumbai cycle, which is the new expansion, were lower than the previous cycle.
Now, how have you? Where did you get these numbers from? Because I remember quoting you on these numbers once and then look like an asshole because I was wrong.
So
not these particular numbers, but an earlier set.
Okay, so if I'm the tournament attendance that I got was from Aku, which tracks tournament attendance for all U.S. and Europe tournaments. So that I know is just right.
Okay.
The sales numbers I got from stimhack.com, so quote me less on those.
Okay.
But I do know you could go to www.aku.net, ACOO.net, and you can see the tournament, turnout numbers. And where we were at a pretty standard, like even for locals, 20 to 30, attendees, we've gone down to like 12, 13.
Which is not a dead game by any stretch of the imagination, but
no, but it shows a drop off. You could see a tournament drop off.
Yeah.
You can, does that mean that everyone's not playing the game? No. But, like, you take that, and you take, like, sort of the staleness on the online platform, gintechie.net, and you just hear the community being angry about the MWL, and you could tell that this is affecting the game negatively. So, like I said, quote me less on the Mumbad sales numbers. I'd have to look that up on StimHack. But tournament attendance, I'm very confident about.
Yeah.
And,
Which is how I ended up playing Hearthstone.
Yeah.
I wanted a card game in my life, and me and Angelo are not living together anymore. Like, he moved out with his girlfriend, I moved out with my wife, and so we're not in the same house anymore. So it's harder for me to play NetRunner, but also just I'm less excited by it because it seems like so fewer decks are viable, and it's just a disappointment. And the fact that the most wanted list came in the wake of Dan Dargenio's upset win at Worlds.
And people were finally being like, holy crap, there's other decks to play.
Yeah, he did his Valencia Mill deck, and all of a sudden, it was this amazing, amazing thing, and everyone loved it.
A runner deck that ran on 1 credit. It was crazy. It
changed the game massively, and you could argue that maybe it didn't change the game for the better. Sure, I'm willing to entertain those kinds of arguments. But it was something different, and the meta was blown open, and things were wide open. And now it just seems like things have narrowed and closed. And maybe Dan Dargenio will come back. Hey, Dan, we love you. You're great.
Yeah.
No sleeps forever. Maybe it'll come back, and maybe he'll come back to Worlds again, and he'll kick ass, and he'll show us that there's room in the meta that we're not seeing. Because that's happened 2 years in a row.
So I have a question. As someone who has not played this game, generally speaking, has no interest, not for any particular reason.
We can't even get you to play The Walking Dead Telltale, which will take you 10 hours for season 1.
I have.
Which
yes.
you owe.
Yes.
Never mind a $500 card game that you have not even bought into for 1 cent.
But I do have a question, just how, and I don't know if you could answer this question, how is this game comparable? I'm asking like a layman question. Comparable, or could you relate it to in any way to Magic, which is also played on a large scale?
Well, they were actually both invented by the same guy, Richard Garfield.
Okay.
Richard Garfield actually made NetRunner because he wanted it to be very different from Magic.
Yeah, and it is very different. It's slower. It's a little bit more thoughtful in terms, I think, but I've never been a great Magic player, so that's part of it, I think. It's a little more thoughtful in gameplay.
It is more random.
It's more random.
It is way more random. Like Magic games, even though there's hidden shit in your hand that comes into play, there are cards in NetRunner that if you just encounter them, like the primary thing you do to like attack the opponent if you're the runner is make runs. You could just make a run and they'll reveal a trap card, reveal a card that will just kill you. Yeah. They're like, and by kill you I mean end the game. So it's more random. There's only one resource. It's also a living card game, which actually is the most important thing to say, because when you buy a box, you get all the cards in that set, not like a booster pack.
Yeah. And which was great initially because it was it seemed like a smaller investment.
But it turns out, hilariously, that's the interesting thing. When a card pool gets big, then you spend less money on a deck than you would normally with a collectible card game. Because there's very little secondary market for NetRunner.
Yeah. People don't sell their cards.
So if you want to get into NetRunner, you just have to drop that $500 investment. Yeah. But I have a competitive Type 1 Magic card, deck with like crazy, powerful cards that I spent like $20 on because I was just buying $1 rares, $2 rares, stuff like that.
Is that your red?
Yeah, my red kill you in 3 turns deck.
Yeah. Which is a great deck.
So, you can, if you want to get into it, as the card pool expands, your monetary investment is actually lower with collectible games.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Which is kind of one of the reasons why I'm playing Hearthstone, because right now there is no financial investment for me. It doesn't cost anything to buy for your phone, and you don't have to spend money on the cards if you don't want to. I probably will end up spending some money because I don't mind throwing money at a game developer who's made a game I like.
And this is made by Blizzard, and Blizzard knows games. So
I mean, they know how to keep a game alive. There's really no reason why World of Warcraft should still be a thing.
But it is.
It's totally still a thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously totally still a thing. And dying, shrinking, but it's I don't know any other game that's lasted as long as that. It's maybe EverQuest, which I guess has lasted longer because it's newer, but it doesn't have the player base that World of Warcraft does. Or the massive war chest. And I mean, they made StarCraft, and so I have no worries about the continuing health of Hearthstone. Another thing that's good about Hearthstone is that because there's no physical cards, the game can modify itself, it can patch itself. There's a raw and it's
it does it whenever there's a problematic game. It's just like done. They fix the card.
Yeah,
which is great. It's odd that we're so excited about this in a card game, but when there's a card that's causing problems, you're just like, well, now it's not causing problems anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's really hard to have that kind of iterative design in like a physical card game because it's like, what, I bought these cards and they're just no good anymore. I understand that people don't want to do that to players. I spent $400 and something like what is he, like $200? Like $200. Like 2 cycles are not gonna be playable in tournaments anymore very soon. Like at the end of the Bombard cycle, that's it. I'm gonna lose Genesis cycle and Spin cycle.
Yeah, $200 investment.
There's a $200 investment that I can't play in a tournament anymore. Now I'm sure there's gonna be tournament formats where I can play it, but that's pretty rough.
Well,
whereas,
also
everything I have in Hearthstone, I'm fairly certain will be good for a very long time.
Yeah, by definition, because they're still going to cycle sets out, but you could always play wild mode, which is everything.
Yeah.
And more to the point, Hearthstone has this disenchant mechanic.
You would scrap cards for dust to build new cards, which is... Can't fucking do that with NetRunner.
Yeah, I mean, dude, can you imagine if you just open your pack and you're like, Leviathan, could you give me another account siphon, please?
Or just Leviathan, can I how many of these do I need to scrap to get one Jackson Howard?
Yeah, exactly.
So I actually have another layman question. Because in spite of seeming like I'm checked out, I actually am semi still listening.
We don't have your full attention, but
Despite seeming like I don't give a shit about you, I only mostly don't give a shit about you.
Yes. I do have a proposal about this particular thing later after we're done, assuming that I don't end up having to leave and you guys are still recording. Which is a possibility that has happened before.
Yeah.
Because technically speaking, I do live in a different state.
But technically speaking.
Yes. Although it is easier to get to that different state from here than it is to get to some of the places in that same state, in that same city.
It's true.
That being said, because you mentioned playing in tournaments and investing a certain amount of money into a game like NetRunner, and I know people who invest a certain amount of, my roommate is one of these people, invest a certain amount of money into Magic.
Yeah.
When you reach a certain point, is it impossible to go, go back and just play it, quote unquote, for fun?
I can still play it for fun. I mean, I played for fun.
Because you mentioned like you have these decks that you can't use in tournament. Does that mean that like okay that because essentially what you're saying is that investment it just went to nothing because you can't use those again? Does that mean that like you can never go back and play?
Well, okay,
as a quote unquote normal player.
Here's
I'll totally do that.
Here's the question is, what do you mean by for fun? Because the problem here isn't, oh my god, we can't ever play outside of a tournament setting. The problem is finding other people to play with. Like, me and Justin can just play whatever old-ass NetRunner decks we want against each other. But part of being a part of an evolving card game is always tweaking your decks, always trying something new. Because if you play the same deck against the same deck, it doesn't really matter what game you play, it gets stale after a while.
Right.
Yeah, it'll last you for a good long time, but eventually you sort of know how this, ends up going on.
Well, then my further question for that, and this is I asked this on a level of.
I need to tell you my Land of Sunshine and Rainbows story after this because it ties into what you said.
Okay, but as far as you're playing for a while, is there a point? Let's say you've started playing a game, you get really into it. What, like you brought up, what you mean by playing for fun? Is if you're not playing in tournaments, quote unquote, and you're just, is there a point where eventually, if you don't play in tournaments, you end up just going? I might be answering my own question here, but where you just go, okay, well then I'm just not going to play anymore.
I wouldn't say not play
because you could still.
I do need to tell the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows story.
You could still play with your friends. I'm assuming, even if you were constantly modifying decks.
Yeah, but then your friends are constantly modifying their decks with new cards, and they're playing for the new format, and so then you have to spend money.
Yeah.
The thing is,
which is fine, but I was more asking. It was just like.
Okay, so let me tell you what I mean by my theory of the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows.
Go ahead.
Every new game player, whether it's a video game, a card game, a board game...
By the way, I'm playing the me in this discussion.
Oh, that's
cool.
Listener. Okay, so every new game player starts in something that I've called the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows. Okay? The Land of Sunshine and Rainbows is a beautiful and happy motherfucking place. Everything in the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows is great. There are no bad cards in the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows. There are no bad strategies in the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows. Everything is good. Everything's something you want to test out. Everything's something you want to do. And so this new game you're playing is interesting, but it's also largely random. You don't really know the mechanics, and the people you're playing against largely don't know the mechanics, and whenever something cool happens, you're like, ha! Look at that cool thing that happens. It works. Like, if you were using fighting games as an example, whenever someone throws a fireball, it's like, ha! I threw a fireball! But then, sometime, while you're prancing around in this Land of Sunshine and Rainbows with your friends, you'll trip. And you'll find something that works. Like, actually, a good example is when Justin just got into NetRunner, and he's like, Angelo, you have to play this game, and I just made a deck out of nowhere with no guide, The first thing I made was Fast Advance, because I was like, that certainly seems powerful. Yeah. So you're new, but you trip into this thing, and this thing starts working, and now you've made this cognitive link that my actions allow me to win.
Right.
And when you make that link, you notice that there's this big black curtain in the back of the Land of Sunshine and Rainbows. And it's terrifying but you know that if you look behind the curtain, you just might get better and you might win more.
But
And so-
also, you gotta also remember that behind that curtain is a bunch of pro gamer assholes who are wearing shirts without sleeves, who are thinking really hard about how to whoop your ass and make sure that you have a lot less fun than you
So
have.
that's
now.
it's weirdly parallel to MMA.
Here's the thing. You continue prancing around with just this like tiny bit of data from behind the veil in the land of sunshine and rainbows, saying, "Okay, I'll win every so often. I'll win every so often." And then you get in contact with someone, and you don't know who that's going to be, but they know just a little bit more than you. And you're like, "Man, that was a good match, but I really would like to up my game." You know? And so you walk closer to that curtain, and you peek behind the curtain. You know what behind the curtain is? Fucking math. All games are just math. And you realize this, and numbers...
I was recently watching a documentary that there's a couple... This is a weird side tangent, but there's a couple mathematicians and scientists at like MIT who have theorized that everything is math.
Well, right.
Is that if you look in nature and just the structure of things, that on a certain level, math doesn't just explain things, math is things.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you peek behind this curtain, right? And suddenly things that were like cool fireballs and interesting cyberpunk programs are now like, oh, well, if I could play it for 1 credit and then spend 2 credits to make it break this, it's better than this other breaker that's already there, you know, for this many credits. Or if you're playing a fighting game, you know, it's not a fireball. It's like, my fireball starts up in 3 frames, and if he wakes up in 5 frames, then I can meet him, you know, on wake up, and that means that I can continue my pressure. Or if you're playing shooters, you know, it's like the AoE effect of this grenade goes that far, and eventually it's all frame data, it's all numbers in your head, right? And so it's terrifying, and you look back to the land of sunshine and rainbows, but you've seen the numbers now, you've seen the Matrix, so the land of sunshine and rainbows is now all numbers.
Well, you know,
So-
to make it like a little bit less scary, when you start a game, it's all narrative. It's like there's a story, I did a thing and it was crazy, and then this other thing happened, and then this other thing happened because I did the other thing, and then I won the game, or then I lost the game. It's a story, and then it becomes nothing but numbers. But then when you become good enough at the numbers, it becomes a story again.
Yeah, exactly.
And most people don't get out that other side of the tunnel.
Yeah.
The people who,
I will readily admit that I will become fascinated with it from an outsider's perspective. But I do very often reach the point, and it's not a fear thing, because I'm not like, there is nothing for me, because of the game, there's nothing realistically for me to fear, because that's not how my brain operates. I just go, yeah, that's fascinating. Does not seem fun to me. I'm not going to continue.
yeah, sure. And that's legit. Like, I think, and my wife is kind of the same way. Anything with that many numbers, she's not interested in doing. I don't even think, I'm trying to convince her to play Hearthstone. I don't think she's going to do that.
I'm going to make a weird parallel here.
Hey, Jamie, play Hearthstone.
Okay.
It's free.
Yeah. I'll
I'm not going to play it.
as
You know he's
with,
not gonna
as
play
with
it.
everything, I will download it and then never play it.
Okay.
You are such a fucking prick.
But I'm about to make a weird parallel because
Is it a parallel about what a fucking asshole you are?
maybe. So my roommate is both a huge Magic player. He's actually played in a couple of like the national tournaments. Hi, Jared. Come on the podcast. We need to schedule it. Whatever.
Dude, seriously.
We'll talk about Magic.
Yeah. He also watches a lot of football. I have a weird similar thing with football. Is that if you actually, however you might feel about football, if you really go into like the dynamics and the story, I am fascinated and enamored with all of the stories surrounding football.
Yeah.
And the numbers and how everything operates, and actually take very little interest or enjoyment in the game itself.
Yeah.
Part of why I told you the story is because you asked the question, can you go back and play it for fun? And sort of my thesis is, you can never go back to the point where you don't see the numbers.
Okay.
Like, you can try.
You can see the numbers and say, I don't care about
them.
But
you see them. And that causes some problems. I mean, problems, they're not necessarily bad, but they're problems. In NetRunner, for example, when you know what the probability is of you dying to, say, a snare, right?
Yeah.
If you run on R&D, and that probability is like 5%, and that 5% happens and kills you,
Well, you shouldn't be an asshole. You shouldn't run on your fourth click.
Well, no, but see,
the snare is a bad example because it can be played around.
Yeah, but the point is, when you see when there's a probability of something like losing you the game, but it's a 5% probability, and you know that probability, game strategy says make that move because you likely won't die. But then when you do die, it makes you upset.
Right.
And
that's a personal problem.
But that's sort of what I'm saying. That's how you can't not see the numbers. You're always going to know that probability. Whether or not you're upset by it, that's a personal thing.
Right.
But, like, when you know how the game operates, like, the reason why I use the snare is because when you're still in the land of sunshine and rainbows, the snare could be anywhere, Yeah. Like, there's no such thing as probability. Oh, man, I died to a snare. Wasn't that cool, But when you know what that probability is, and you're making more informed decisions, then it changes the way you look at the game. So, like, for example, in Magic, I can just play a dude with a deck that I have, whenever I want,
Right.
But part of what keeps that game fresh, and as Justin said, eventually the numbers start to tell a story, is this introduction of new cards.
Right.
And it's not that I can't have fun with past decks. I certainly can. But you play past decks and you play new cards for totally different reasons.
Right.
And that's sort of why in Magic, why I play the Cube, which is a draft set of the best cards in Magic, and that constantly gets updated.
Right.
And for that matter, that's why when me and Justin talk about NetRunner, we're always talking about the newest cards, because we know what the numbers are for the decks we have now. But when a new card comes out and those numbers change, then it changes the narrative. And then it changes what the game means to us. So I don't think it's as simple as being like, can you play for fun?
Yeah.
We are always playing for fun. Your definition of fun can change depending on the way you were deciding to approach the game.
Yeah.
Right.
What was fun for me in NetRunner in 2012 is not as fun now in 2016. Mm-hmm. That's partly because my perception of the game has changed, partly because I live with Angelo for a long period of time.
So yeah,
he's just an asshole.
Just because I've been running into this more and more, and I know it's the theme we run into on the podcast a lot.
You're wrong.
That too. That's the first thing. The second thing
fucking
is
white people.
Yes, that's the second thing.
That's one of the reasons why I'm still here.
Yeah. That's the second thing. Is
Superman could have turned his head left,
which we will always disagree on.
But the fourth thing,
asshole, is this? Is like, as we get older, or as we've been doing this podcast a while, I've often found that a lot of the things, nerdy things, whether they be games or comic books or movies, you can get really passionate and argue about them. But I've found more and more and the reason why I asked about that, whether you can still play it for fun, is there, when you can't play it without seeing the numbers, I feel like, at least for me,
I've gotten to a point where it gets to a point where I'm just like, end of the day, this is just a game I'm playing. I'm going to set this aside after a while. Because it's just not,
Well, you could still have fun with the numbers. You could still hilariously troll people with the numbers. In fact, I do. But like, whether or not you care about winning is kind of independent from whether or not you see the numbers.
Okay.
But
I think that's fundamentally what I'm
what
trying
the
to ask,
numbers do is they produce cause and effect. Okay. Like, if the only reason you didn't care about winning was because you didn't know what contributed to your winning or losing, then the numbers will affect you. But if the reason you didn't care about winning is just because you don't care about winning,
or that winning is not the most important thing to you.
Yeah, winning's not the most important thing. Then you could act that way when you see the numbers. That's how I've acted with a lot of fighting games in the past. That's how I act with a lot of games.
So, and so I have to ask Angelo, you in particular, about this.
Sure.
Is not to not ask Justin, but I feel like
No, he's a scrub. It's fine.
No.
Fuck that chick. And fuck his fucking opinion.
I only mean this half jokingly, as someone whose fundamental state isn't rage.
No. Justin, it has nothing to do with your ethnicity. You just suck at games.
It's not my ethnicity and everything to do with my personality.
Yes. As someone who is fundamentally more adjusted than you. No, I'm just...
Wow, that's terrifying.
You only think that because you didn't live with it.
That's fucking terrifying.
No, all right. I'm joking here.
Go on, Jamie.
Is if you're someone who plays in that way, like, well, I don't care about winning, how much does that fundamentally piss off everyone else that you're playing with?
Oh, like crazy.
And does that... and again, that comes back to me. It was just like, well, then... how does that not become a thing where it's like it's not fun anymore?
Well, from my pro gamer asshole perspective, and I've made money even on NetRunner, so you know I have fulfilled the term of professional with a lot of games in my life, but for me, when I play these games, my attempt is to play the best I can. There are a lot of different parameters. I might want to play the best I can with a character I never played before, play the best I can with a new deck, play the best I can under some other parameters, but I feel satisfied if I played the best that I can.
Okay.
And I think that the most healthy competitors in the pro gaming arena look at things very much the same way.
Okay.
Daigo Umehara, who is the best Street Fighter player out there,
who just lost to Lupe
Fiasco, which was actually really awesome. I'll tell that story in a bit. But
you have to, because I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. Daigo Umehara says that it's not about winning, it's about being a better player. Right. And so he practices to be a better player, and he fights to be a better player, and he makes friends to be a better player, and he becomes part of the community to be a better player.
And there is your fundamental difference between MMA and fighting games.
And so, just since he has this outlook, he's become one of the best players in the world, if not the best Street Fighter player in the world. The same thing sort of goes when I was doing Magic professionally, and I was going to tournaments to feed my habit. I just wanted to know that I played to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And you slowly find other people. Like, a good example is Justin probably has like a 90% loss rate in Skullgirls against me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
we were doing. I was doing well with Soul Calibur back in college, but Skullgirls.
but he'll still play with me, and I think he still has fun.
Yeah.
You know.
Eventually, sometimes it'll reach a point where like I just get my ass whooped enough times that I'm like, all right, I've had. I used to get to the point where I got my ass whooped, I got angry, and I kept playing. Mm-hmm. Now I get my ass whooped, I'm like, this is not fun anymore. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
And Angelo, being a good sport, is like, cool. Let's play NetRunner, and I'll make your ass in a totally different way.
But the cool thing about saying that is that also means that Justin's rage stamina increases, and he plays more Skullgirls, and he has fun even when he's getting his ass kicked, because he too is trying to be a better player. And sometimes. And the cool thing about that is when you have that viewpoint, you become a better player.
Yeah.
Like, there are these points when Justin just has these bursts of clarity where it's like, oh yeah, I could not drop my combos.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
And he just does fantastic. And you can see someone's skill evolving as long as you just keep playing. You know?
Right.
And I mean, it's also sort of the purpose of the, pro gamer asshole to understand that not everyone's going to be as good as you. And this is actually where the Daigo Umehara Lupe Fiasco fight comes in.
Right. Before you tell that story, I just because we didn't address it at all, but I do want to kind of just throw this out there because you brought up Lupe Fiasco. If you haven't heard his latest album, which came out around the same time as To Pump a Butterfly came out.
Are you like Tetsuo Youth?
Yeah.
I did not like that album.
Here's the interesting thing. I didn't initially. I feel like they're they're approaching the same sort of things from two very different angles, and Lupe Fiasco's album is you have to listen to it more than once.
I listened to it like 3 times.
Okay.
That also, the fact that he opens the album with like an 8-minute freestyle really turns me off.
That's fair.
It's like an 8-minute freestyle where every couple of bars he goes off the beat. I'm like, what? Are you sure you're the guy who did the cool?
The interesting thing about that album is that it's experimental and challenging, but in a very different. Like, I think a lot of people would argue against this, but I think they're comparable. You just have to understand that they're experimental, going in two different interpretations. I don't know. I think they're parallel to each other. They're just very, very different.
Yeah.
And I like To Pimp a Butterfly. It's a better album.
Yeah.
As a whole.
And his fucking Grammy performance. Holy shit.
That being said, I have to hear this story.
So, about a year ago, a little bit more than that, actually, Lupe Fiasco said that one of his dreams was to fight Daigo Umehara in Street Fighter.
That's amazing.
Because Daigo Umehara is the best Street Fighter player out there, and Lupe Fiasco is a Street Fighter fan, and he said that he would train up and do it, and Sony and Capcom decided to make it a thing. So today, Street Fighter V released.
Okay.
And it's quite good. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
But
you might have to pause, and I'll have to leave, and then you can.
We'll figure it out.
Story.
I have to go soon too.
Yeah. So maybe we won't talk about it.
Let's finish the story.
It's a good game. Anyway. Yeah. So there was a release party. It was a big midnight release party, and all the pro gamers were there. And they set up a match, and it's an exhibition match, and it was Daigo Umehara versus Lupe Fiasco, who has been training like crazy over the past
because
year.
He is who he is.
And he got there, and it was really bad when it started out. His stick wasn't working. They're playing Street Fighter V now. Street Fighter V has not been out before today,
right?
So granted, both players are totally fresh.
Right. It's like the end of Wizard.
Yeah.
A new game!
Lupe Fiasco's stick wasn't working in the beginning. There were button check problems. People were like futzing around with the new mechanics. And Daigo, who had played a little bit before, was even coaching him in between matches. And Daigo was playing.
So in this situation, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for this. Is Lupe Fiasco Fred Savage and Daigo would be the little mentally challenged kid?
No. Lupe is the mentally challenged kid.
And Daigo is Jenny Lewis?
Let's just go with that.
People have never seen that movie or aren't going to get any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll totally get all of it.
Daigo's the one going, I love the power glove. It's so bad. It's Lucas. But anyway, Daigo, comes out the gate, does really good. Lupe, doesn't know what's hitting him. Eventually gets a couple people, other pro gamers in his corner. Partially because, you can see on the fucking camera that, all these other pro gamers are like, that's Lupe Fiasco. We should probably tell him how to, win. So, just all these people from the community coming out, giving him advice and so on and so forth. And he starts running it back. And he has, the problem where he'll, mash throw several times. And, we'll hammer on jab too much. But because the game was fresh, he eventually takes it back, and it goes to last match, last game. Everyone's gone on record that this hasn't been staged,
Right.
Everybody has, swore that this was 100% correct, but Lupe Fiasco beats Daigo Umehara 3-2. And everybody's like, that can't be real, and Daigo Umehara and Lupe Fiasco actually had a very mature response to that, where it was like, it's an exhibition match.
Yeah.
If Daigo was playing for, $50,000, he would have fucking creamed Lupe, But that's not the point.
Yeah.
Street Fighter V just came out. Everybody was fresh. Everybody was fooling around. And in a match where people were fooling around, Lupe ended up beating Daigo Umehara.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice and kind of cool. And fulfilled one of Lupe Fiasco's life dreams.
Yeah.
So,
And after the way his career's gone, he kind of deserves it.
So,
He's had a rough roll of it.
So,
some of that is his fault.
And
some
so
of it isn't.
The reason why I brought this up in the greater sort of discussion that we're having is because Daigo Umehara could have smashed Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah.
Let's just be real with ourselves
Yeah.
here. But he didn't. That doesn't mean that he wasn't trying to win, and that doesn't mean that he wasn't playing hard. But it meant that the scenario was different.
Yeah.
This was an exhibition match meant for entertainment, where both people playing, because Daigo Umehara is apparently a Lupe Fiasco fan, were just happy to be near each other.
That must be really nice. It's like, I really like you. I really like you too. That must be a really great feeling.
Yeah. It wasn't a tournament. Money wasn't on the line. Right. People did train and people did take it seriously.
Yeah.
But you're just not in the same mindset. Yeah. And I've experienced that too. Because, when I'm playing against Justin in Skullgirls, I am playing against him as hard as I can. But the as hard as I can...
Yes.
But the as hard as I can that I play against Justin is different than the as hard as I can when I'm in a money tournament.
Right.
I'm seeing things differently. I'm doing things differently. And for that matter, the as hard as Justin can that is against me would be different than the as hard as Justin can. In a money
interestingly,
there's a weird parallel again to actual martial arts in this. Is there was a guy who I used to spar with. There were and the guy who was the former master of our karate school. Two of them, they would beat the crap out of you when you were sparring with them. But the interesting thing was because they were so skilled, you were getting the kick crap.
The kick crapped out of you.
Yes, the kick crapped out of you. But you were also fighting, sparring at the highest level that you were capable of. And because they weren't fighting you in a way that they would fight someone else who was at the same level as them in a tournament. They were fighting you as hard as they could, like they weren't pulling any punches, but they were deliberately doing it so that to force you to fight at the top of your capability as well.
Yeah.
And it was actually amazing. It's like an amazing kind of... And you end up still, even though you're getting your ass kicked, you end up still enjoying it. Even though you're, in this case, you're literally getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
You feel better about it because you also feel like I wasn't getting slaughtered and I actually picked up a couple of new things.
And that's
from
actually
getting my ass kicked.
And that's kind of like the best possible world you can be in, I think, because you're learning something and you're challenging yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and you know, I think in America we have a little bit of too much of a fetishization of challenging yourself. It's like you always have to be better. You always have to be better. You always have to be better. And that's admirable sometimes, but when it becomes a neuroses, it stops being an admirable quality. But it can be a really great thing if you're really passionate about something, and that's really what you want. And it's not something you're doing because
but it's the difference between always trying to be better and always trying to win.
Yeah. Those are two very different things. People
Even
think
and
they're the
not
same
meaning that
thing.
you're
They're
not
the
trying to
same
win
thing.
when you're trying to be better, but those are fundamentally different things. Yeah. I feel like we should somehow wrap this up.
Like,
Our listeners are like, God, please stop talking.
Well, it's going to be cut into 2 episodes
And it's funny
anyway.
because it's just Tilda Swinton that's like screaming at her computer screen
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
You guys are such assholes.
I'm going to play the ancient one. Aren't you happy enough with that?
Tilda
Which, by the way, we
Swinton's
didn't
like,
even get
I
to
play
that.
fast advance. Like,
What's wrong with NBM? It's a strategy that wins.
yeah. Well, thanks for having us on again, Jamie. We need to do this more often.
Yes.
Then that way we won't speak for 3 hours
Yes.
every single time you have us on.
The funny thing is you think you're leaving now. The funny thing is you
Yeah,
think
no,
the recording
you're
goes
not.
off and you're being allowed to leave.
I am putting my boots on.
You're putting your boots on, but that's not going to change the fact that you're tied to a chair.
Fine.
You're a spoil sport. Why do you have to spoil my sport? My sport of Jamie hunting. Kidnapping Jamie for fun and profit.
Spoils your sport because you've looked past the curtain and now Jamie hunting is just numbers.
It's just math.
Yeah, it's just
You just need to move faster than Jamie.
I am the most challenging of prey.
It's the rollerblades, really.
the most dangerous prey.
Yes.
The sharktopus.
The shark.
I am the sharktopus of this podcast.
Are you saying under that balding pate there is a sharktopus?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where all the testosterone is going.
Yes.
Into the sharktopus.
Have you hit stop yet, for Christ's sake?